Member for Labrie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is a privilege to stand before you here today as part of a team that is invested in the well-being of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the continuation of a human-centered recovery post-COVID-19. Our people, it is said, are our most precious resource, and the government is cognizant of the need to nurture them and provide them with tools and resources they need in order to lead fulfilling and sustainable lives so that they can be productive members of society, especially in the face of an evolving working environment. Before I begin my discourse on the work being done specifically at the Ministry of Labor, may I take this opportunity to thank the men and women of the Labrie constituency for having confidence in me to represent them in this august body here today. I would also like to thank the Prime Minister for the confidence shown in me in terms of his decision to allow me to serve as Minister of Labor in his cabinet. As I begin, allow me to commend my colleague, the Minister of Finance, and his team. The preparation of the budget is a Herculean task which requires not only the examination of national economic, social, and environmental realities, but also the realities that exist globally. In his presentation, aptly entitled Building Capacity for Diversification and Growth, the Minister of Finance and his team have once again managed to expertly integrate local, regional, and international conditions and create policies which will generate sustainable growth and development of our economy. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Labor remains committed to achieving people-centered progress in alignment with government's official policy framework, the National Development Strategy Vision 2030, the Roadmap to Recovery reports, the Community Recovery Report, and the International Labour Organization standards. Our initiatives aim to empower the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago through the promotion of decent work, industrial peace, and the facilitation of employment as we work towards achieving Sustainable Development Goal 8, decent work and economic growth. We at the Ministry of Labor believe that a more educated and empowered labor force that evolves with the rapidly changing world of work will serve as the basis for Trinidad and Tobago's economic sustainability. Madam Speaker, part of the effort, and I turn my attention now to the increase in minimum wages. As part of the effort to increase productivity and social and economic inclusion, that resulted in the decision to increase the national minimum wage from $17.50 per hour to $20.50 per hour, with effect from January 1st, 2024. This move certainly did not come as a surprise. In the lead up to the budget, I made it clear that a recommendation was before Cabinet and that the government was actively considering it. I can assure you, Madam Speaker, that the increase was not pulled out of a hat, but was based on a recommendation from our minimum wage fixing machinery, in this instance, the Minimum Wages Board, which is established under the Minimum Wages Act, Chapter 8804. The increase in the minimum wage helps to guarantee that those at the lowest end of the earning scale can meet their basic needs. It also protects the vulnerable workers, including non-unionized workers, from exploitation by their employers. A rise in the minimum wage was bandied about at $30 and some at $25, and there was and is a lot of discussion in the national place with regards to whether it was effective and a good increase or not. Some proffered that a minimum wage of $30 would have been better suited to create a living wage rather than a minimum wage. But this, Madam Speaker, would have created significant pressure and demands for wage increases by entry-level positions as well as low and semi-skilled workers. Some middle-level positions would now find their remuneration package in close proximity to the minimum wage. Contract workers will increase wage demands even though they exist in higher brackets currently in order to maintain the differentials. Government employees, given that the state uses minimum wage as a reference point in computation of salary structures, would also seek under such a wage increase to have their voices heard. We would also put some pressure on the National Insurance Fund recipients who would also demand higher wages. A worker at a minimum wage of $30 will cost $2,000 more to their employer every 4 weeks. Imagine a business place that has contributed to the community by employing 10 young persons. This means an additional $20,000 has to be found. The logical expectation would be that should the business be unable to withstand this shock, they will reduce staff and increase the workload on those that remain. The alternative for many businesses may not be bright, and they may actually have to close down altogether. The decision of $20.50 is responsible from the perspective of economic realities. There are sectors that can afford to pay persons more, but there are many sectors that simply cannot afford it. The decision would result in an outcome that on the face of it seems to have the workers in mind, yet in reality, because of the expected job losses, works against workers' best interests. On the face of a 71% increase in the minimum wage in Trinidad and Tobago from $17.50 to $30 per hour may benefit those workers that are retained by their employers, but it will also pose several problems, namely job loss. A large percentage of the labor force are employed by small and medium-sized businesses. Many operate in sectors with slim profit margins. They may also be facing stiff competition from larger players that possess the ability to absorb wage increases, given their financial buffers and economies of scale. As a result, the smaller players in the market may simply not be able to pass on the wage increases to consumers by jacking up prices of goods and services. It may also be manifested via a reduced working hours, hiring freezes, staff cuts, or retrenchment. That level of wage increase also gives inflationary pressures, also produce inflationary pressures. It is easy to deduce that a 71% rise in minimum wage will contribute to inflationary pressure on the price of goods and services. Simply put, businesses will require to treat with increased labor costs, and once the market allows for it, they will pass on their higher wages to the consumers. Additionally, a rise in prices will erode the purchasing power of families. The benefit of a wage hike would therefore be lost. Also, industries reliant on exports and those facing competition from imported goods may become uncompetitive, potentially leading to reduced economic growth and employment opportunities in the long term. Many who propose a higher increase seemingly fail to take into account the overall economic conditions, the ability of businesses to adapt, and the accompanying policies and measures which will be required to mitigate the potential negative impacts. I move on, Madam Speaker, to investments in technical, vocational education and training. I was also delighted to hear from the Minister of Finance a focus on youth development and training, especially as it relates to technical, vocational education and training, TVET. The Minister of Finance mentioned investments and expansions in numerous programs and, most importantly, the building of teacher capacity levels in the technical and vocational institutions. TVET is a gateway to opportunities, providing persons with highly demanded skills for the current job market. It also enables those who have found themselves without jobs new career in business opportunities through reskilling and upskilling. This is something close to my heart, and I fully support these initiatives, given that it will facilitate further job creation. Industrial relations. I was also glad to hear, Madam Speaker, the directive of the Minister of Finance to pay those public officers who accepted the CPO's 4% wage increase the monies owed to them by December 2023. Many of these workers would have been working on 2013 salaries, and I am certain this gesture will go far in fulfilling their immediate needs and to further enhance their quality of life, especially with the payment of arrears by the end of 2023. Like the Minister of Finance, I look forward to the early determination of the Chief Personnel Officer's settlement offer by the 4 remaining unions. Increase in retirement age. Finally, the Minister of Finance gave a clear signal that instead of increasing the rate of contribution by employers and employees with respect to the national insurance contributions, the strategy being considered is an increase in the retirement age from 60 to 65 years. What I would like to say is that this decision will not be taken unilaterally. The conversation has already begun and consultations are being completed. But we are all aware that some action will need to be taken in order to ensure the sustainability of the national insurance system. As I now move to the Ministry of Labour, Madam Speaker, I believe it is important to look at the prevailing labour market conditions globally as well as in Trinidad and Tobago in order to provide a context in which we operate. The International Labour Organization, in its 2022 Labour Report, noted that the economies of Latin America and the Caribbean continued on the recovery path which began in 2021. In 2023, the region has seen the return of pre-pandemic employment rates. However, the adage of not painting everything with a broad brush comes to mind, as this regional employment rate does not reflect the individual situations specific to the countries being considered. According to the International Labour Organization Monitor, on the World of Work 11th edition, while global employment in 2023 is expected to fall below pre-pandemic levels to 191 million, which corresponds to a global unemployment rate of 5.3%, the low-income countries remain far behind in the recovery process. According to the ILO's report titled World Employment and Social Outlook Trends 2023, the labor market continues to be negatively impacted by external shocks, which include, on the top of the impacts of the pandemic, emerging geopolitical tensions and the Ukraine conflict. The effect of the aforementioned can be seen in the current cost of living crisis, and the decreases in earning potential and livelihoods worldwide, particularly in developing nations. The IMF expects global gross domestic product growth to slow to 3% in both 2023 and 2024, down from 3.5% in 2022. The prediction, as always, hides a considerable gap between the advanced and emerging economies. Madam Speaker, as many of my counterparts, Trinidad and Tobago is no exception to these inferences. However, through sound economic policy and favorable terms of trade, Trinidad and Tobago has continued to weather the storms. As the Minister of Finance would have mentioned, data from the Central Statistical Office for the second quarter of 2023 showed improvements in all major indicators of economic growth, such as GDP, the unemployment rate, and the labor force participation rate. Total unemployment showed a significant improvement of 3.7% in the second quarter of 2023, compared to 4.5% for the same period in 2022. There was also a slight increase in the number of persons with jobs from 562,700 in the second quarter of 2022 to 587 plus in the second quarter of 2023. This was reflected in an increase in the labor force participation rate to 56.2%, up from 55.2% in 2023 and 54.4% in the second quarter in 2022. Madam Speaker, in 2021, the ILO called for a human-centered approach to recovery. This call remains relevant today and is something that has always been incorporated into the work of the government as well as the Ministry of Labor. In 2022, the ILO went a step further, calling for diversity and inclusion in the workplace, leading towards greater productivity and innovation and employee well-being. I must add that our agenda at the Ministry of Labor nurtures diversity and inclusivity, where they have been intertwined with ongoing responsibilities and developmental initiatives. Strengthening our labor market information system. It is in this context, Madam Speaker, that the Ministry of Labor continues to pursue our mandate to facilitate the provision of decent work for citizens in Trinidad and Tobago. I am a firm believer in data and evidence to guide our decision-making. When someone approaches me and says unemployment is skyrocketing, I can understand that this may be a personal experience. But is it true? Does the data confirm this? It is therefore critical to have a repository of data and information that can be analyzed so gaps can be identified, recommendations can be made, and solutions found. Labor market information systems provide an essential basis for employment and labor policies and inform the design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of such policies that can better be focused and targeted to current and future needs of our citizens. This is why the Ministry of Labor is continuously striving to strengthen our labor market information systems. Madam Speaker, we are attempting to eliminate situations of incomplete information within the labor market. One such initiative is a job vacancy survey for both the public and private sectors. I am happy to state that the data collection process has been completed for the public service, has been completed for the public service, civil service survey, and the report is in its final stages. The data collection phase for the private sector survey has been completed and the report is being prepared. The data gathered from these surveys will not only inform our needs to identify gaps in the demand for labor, but it will inform all users of such data in their policy development and decision making. One such entity is tertiary education providers in couching their programs and courses to address skill needs and gaps. In the coming year, Madam Speaker, I would like to state that the Ministry of Labor will be intensifying our surveys to gather vital data on the municipal corporations, the regional health authorities, and protective services, thereby expanding our database of demand-side information. The Ministry has also sought to ensure that the relevant staff receive appropriate training. Earlier this year, a number of them were privileged to participate in a CARICOM workshop, and later this month, they will be exposed to an Inter-American Development Bank workshop to build capacity in identifying skill needs in the Trinidad and Tobago labor market. Madam Speaker, the government understands that sustainable and accessible employment is a major driver of economic growth and development. It is the lifeblood of the citizens and provide an avenue to support themselves and their families. It is for this very reason that the Ministry of Labor continues to play a critical role in facilitating decent work opportunities for job seekers. The Ministry of Labor facilitates employment by providing the necessary infrastructure and enabling environment for job seekers and employers to find each other. The enabling environment is created through two of our main services. The first being the National Employment Service, NES, and the second, the On-the-Job Training Program. It is important to note that the findings and recommendations derived from the job vacancy survey mentioned earlier will also serve to inform and strengthen these services. Madam Speaker, the National Employment Service is a free employment service where employers and job seekers can register so those looking for work can match with those seeking workers. In collaboration with the Ministry of Education, the ministry created an online portal dubbed the National Employment Online Network, or NEON, which will allow both employers and job seekers to register with the NES online. This portal will provide more accessible and facilitation for platform. The NEON program, Madam Chairman, I just got thing there, will provide an avenue for those seeking jobs and those who can provide jobs to meet on a platform and in a portal where they can exchange information and move the process along. Think of this as a free digital recruitment agency, which works to allow efficient and convenient connection between employers and job seekers. Therefore, I encourage all employers and job seekers, including persons with disabilities, to sign up using the website neon.labor.gov.tt when it comes on stream. One of the issues that we have with such a system is that what we require really is people to use the system more in order for it to become more effective. We have a number of online agencies in Trinidad and Tobago, and we have a number of ministries who try to match jobs with applicants. The more people that uses the NEON system, is the faster it will become effective, and the quicker we'll be able to transition from the time someone needs a body on board to when that body actually gets on board. So I urge those all in this room and in the general public to take advantage of that system. The portal also links citizens to the webpage for one of our most popular programs, the Commonwealth Caribbean Seasonal Agricultural Program, commonly referred to as the FARM program. Approximately 900 persons participate in this program each year. I am happy to say that recently the ministry was granted approval to strengthen the program by enhancing our presence in Canada and exploring more gainful opportunities there. One of the things that places Trinidad and Tobago behind in such a program is that we do not have enough people on the ground in Canada to make contact with the various farms and to get our people out there. If we compare Trinidad to, say, Jamaica or Mexico, Jamaica has over 8,000 or 9,000 people on that program. Mexico, probably 23,000. So I took the cabinet and it was approved a program for expanding the office to allow us to make further reaches, not only in the agricultural program, but on a number of other programs that exist currently. In fact, Madam Speaker, in November, we will be hosting the FARM program as it is known. We have an annual meeting, and this year we'll be hosting the meeting in Trinidad and Tobago, and we'll be seeking to involve a number of agencies and ministries to help us push that particular, to find the resources and to ensure that we sell Trinidad and Tobago as an acceptable place from which the farm workers and the farmers could come and recruit our nationals. The FARM program also can be described as a success, as many of the participants who would have gone would have benefited tremendously from being involved in that program. So we have been trying to get additionally, while the main focus of the NES is the facilitation of job matching. Through our numerous outreach programs, we have also and do prepare job seekers for the world of work by improving their marketability, by assisting in resume writing, interview skills, and guidance on professional dress, etc. During the period October 2022 to April 2023, the NES held World of Work seminars and career fairs, assisted almost 2,435 persons in preparation for the work environment. Madam Speaker, the NES is not the only unit that prepares persons for workplace. Perhaps our most well-known and far-reaching program is the on-the-job training program, which continues to grow and improve. This year, we celebrated 21 years of preparing young nationals between the ages of 16 and 35 for the world of work. This is 21 years of providing participants with a relevant work experience so that they are able to access sustainable employment in their fields of interest. One of the things we try to do at the on-the-job training is to match people's academic qualifications to that of the work in which they do, that they will be performing. Too often, people come to the OJT with the mindset of getting a job so that we could eat our food. And that is not what the OJT is about. The OJT is about taking people with specific qualifications and matching them with jobs so that at the end of the 24 months, they would actually be able to participate in work for which they were trained. Too often, if we do it differently, 24 months will pass and somebody with a chemical degree who worked as a cleric in a clerical position will be no better off in their engineering field. And therefore, we would have wasted money, time, and effort in allowing them to eat our food, but not preparing them for the future. And therefore, for some of my colleagues who sometimes get frustrated when they ask for OJTs to be placed, I urge you that sometimes it takes a little longer to place people based on the qualifications that they have and where we feel they can, in fact, benefit. So be patient. During the period 2022 to August 2023, we had about 5,000 persons in the program, approximately. And we recruited 2,815 during that period. You will expect that after 24 months, that every month in fact, people exit the program and new people come into the program. So although it's at 5,000 in 1 year, approximately, we sometimes recruit. The recruiting and the numbers don't always match because we move people from month to month. One of the good things about the on-the-job training is in many instances, persons who spend 24 months within an organization are often offered positions of permanency when their training period is completed. One of the things we try to encourage is for those who would have made an impression in the workplace that the employers would keep them and not release them. Now there's a little catch-22 in that sometimes because the OJT may be low in cost or free to some people, they find it more expedient to get another set of OJTs rather than to facilitate those who have been there. We urge people as part of the training, yes, we acknowledge and we appreciate the training that you provide, but this is about creating and trying to create sustainable and a sustainable environment for getting young people to be placed in meaningful jobs. So while you recruit additional OJTs, I urge you to hire some of them also who would have met the particular performance criteria. So one of the things that we have also done in the OJT program as we continuously evolve is really to partner with those and organizations that would like to be a little more involved in our process. So to that end, we would have signed some memorandum of understanding with a number of training providers, including the National Energy Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago, the National Gas Company, and the MIC Institute of Technology. And this is all in keeping to better streamline the program to meet the needs of the trainees. I turn my attention now to the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies. Madam Speaker, the college, the establishment of the college is well in keeping with the commitment of the People's National Movement since its founding to inclusive development. This institution was founded in 1966, making it one of the oldest tertiary education institutions in the region. It was born out of the vision of Dr. Eric Williams to ensure that all citizens of the new nation of Trinidad and Tobago, in this case, workers and their representatives, had a fair chance and a viable place at the table. The Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies started off as a vocational school in the mid-60s in a radically different environment to the present one. The college has transformed and continues to transform itself as it adjusts to a dynamic world of work and an equally dynamic higher education ecosystem while remaining true to its moorings. Madam Speaker, when I assumed this office, I gave the college a mandate that it had to redouble its effort to anticipate the needs of the changing world of work and within its resources to provide teaching and learning solutions and research to support working people in their quest for justice and equity. The Ministry of Labor, for its part, has invested in building the infrastructure of the college. We have paid particular attention to investments in the information technology infrastructure, allowing the college to position itself to take advantage of e-learning market opportunities and extend its reach regionally and internationally. I also mandated the college to ensure that on issues related to the world of work and the development of working people, it is in a position to make evidence-based contributions. I am quite pleased that the college has taken up this challenge. This institution is a shining example of innovation and resilience. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the college was forced to realign its strategies and structure to full online delivery programs. This was not a hindrance. Within 3 weeks of the COVID-19 lockdown, protocols had been announced in April 2020. The college was able to successfully implement its online mode of teaching and learning. Not only that, Madam Speaker, The college has been able to capitalize on this advantage and use this opportunity to expand its reach in our neighboring islands. I am proud to state that the college has now been able to attract students from Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Guyana, and Anguilla, and its enrollment of regional students continues to grow. In the last 3 years, Cipriani Labor College and Cooperative Studies, through its staff, has done a number of things. They have published 3 books with major international academic publishers. They have published a refereed academic journal. They have partnered with the International Labour Organization, the United Nations Population Fund, the Caribbean Congress of Labour, the Caribbean Employers Confederation, Public Service International, and the Open Society Foundation to conduct research or develop policies in the areas of just transition, the social and solidarity movement, cooperatives development, and gender-based violence. The college has also hosted 5 international academic conferences which have drawn participation from around the region and the world. More recently, the college, in recognition of its work, was engaged by the Caribbean Development Bank to conduct groundbreaking research into labor market and differentials in 15 countries in the Caribbean. This pioneering work will provide social partners in the region with detailed analysis and a data set specific to the Caribbean world of work for the first time. I take this opportunity to commend the college for facilitating events such as these that allow for the sharing of views and information among academia, local labor representatives, government representatives, non-governmental organizations, employer representatives, and so much more, which can greatly assist as we navigate into the future of work. Promoting industrial peace. Madam Speaker, as I speak to the future of work, I want to assure the public that the ministry has not lost sight of its role in the promotion of industrial peace in the context of the evolving work environment. Industrial peace is essential for the sound operations of organizations in society, as well as the well-being of all workers. It is also a significant driver of economic growth, development, and sustainability. It is therefore something that the Ministry of Labour takes very seriously. The ongoing work of the Conciliation, Advisory, and Advocacy Division of the Ministry promotes the well-being of industrial relations climate that encourages dialogue amongst the social partners. The CAD, as we fondly refer to them, has also adopted a proactive approach to creating and maintaining an environment conducive to meaningful social dialogue. This innovative approach actively seeks to minimize the amount of grievances experienced and dispute reported across all sectors in the economy. I can report that between October 22 and June 23, 743 trade disputes were reported to the Ministry of Labour, and 614 were disposed, meaning they were settled, withdrawn, or referred to the Industrial Court. Further, it is the firm commitment of the Ministry of Labour to promote an environment in the workplace where each individual is safe, respected, and his or her human rights are preserved and promoted. To this end, the Ministry of Labour works extensively to ensure that employees and employers are educated on their rights and responsibilities in the workplace. We try to fill knowledge gaps by engaging in activities which are information-rich and accessible. I expect that you and my colleagues have seen our tidbits.
Your original speaking time is now spent. You're entitled to 10 more minutes to complete your presentation. You may proceed.
I expect, Madam Speaker, that you all would have seen our work on the social media and television ads and appearances on television talk shows and radio talk shows, actually pushing the mandate of the Ministry of Labor. Just recently, we held 2 child labor mall caravans, one in Trin City and the other at Gulf City, for which we brought out members of the Inspectorate Division to speak to people on how to identify child labor issues and to deal with it. We also, Madam Speaker, as I fast forward, we have also acknowledged that the migration issues in Trinidad and Tobago is also important. And we recognize that we have a number of migrant workers coming from Venezuela. And to this end, we would have rewritten all our policies and all our brochures and so on in Spanish so that these migrants are able to read and initiate any issues that affect their rights. Moreover, Madam Speaker, we recently launched a hotline, 800 CAAD, which provides trilingual avenues, English, Spanish, and French, for persons seeking to address sexual harassment in the workplace. We have also focused, Madam Speaker, on safe and healthy working environments. And to this end, we have, and our USH arm has been working assiduously to bring all our regulations and to improve their level of service delivery to a point that we can now investigate matters being reported within 24 hours of receipt of such reports. We also take our health issues at the workplace very, very seriously. And we recognize, because people spend so much of their lives in the workplace, in fact, they spend more time at work than they do at home, that we need to create a framework that would allow them to work and operate in environments that are very safe. So we have created a number of workplace policies where we try to enforce good working standards within the workplace. In the short time I have, Madam Chairman, it would be remiss of me not to touch on the issue of legislation and the fact that in 2023-2024, we can expect to lay before this Parliament a number, at least 3 or 4 pieces of legislation that we have been working on and which are at different stages of development. One of the issues I have recognized is that we keep saying that the world of work is changing and it is changing quickly. And in reading a number of these legislative documents, we seem to always be playing catch-up. Simply put, things change so fast that by the time you write legislation on one thing, something else happens and it makes that obsolete. So it becomes very difficult to, when we listen to people in the labor environment and the amount of things that are changing, and we are writing legislation for the workplace when the workplace as defined is now could be any place, could be home, it could be in your car, and all the ensuing difficulties that come with just defining what is a workplace. And when you define what a workplace is, then you ask questions like, in this workplace, if you get in an accident, is it an industrial accident or is it a personal accident? You ask questions as, if you're working, do you have good ergonomic chairs and desks? You ask yourself, and all these things have to be written and considered when writing legislation, and we just always seem to be playing catch up in that regard. But we have to start someplace, and we will. So we have before us right now the Trade Union Act, we have a set of OSH regulations, we have the Cipriani College of Labor issues and so on. So we are pretty much in tune with what is necessary and what we are doing. Additionally, we will continue to work on other pieces of legislation like HIV and AIDS in the workplace, employment standards, sexual harassment, and so on. The ministry will continue the focus on people-centered development, and I encourage our stakeholders to join us in our journey. We welcome meaningful social dialogue with workers, employers, and social partners. We understand that there is always need to have difficult conversations, but it is in the context of difficult conversations that we arrive at meaningful solutions. We need to not sweep things below the carpet, but to speak our truth in earnest and to navigate our paths towards the realization of our goals and objectives. In closing, Madam Speaker, I would say that the ministry is dedicated to achieving decent work, industrial peace, and opportunities for all. Together with the social partners and other stakeholders, we look forward to continuing the work we have started in building a more resilient, innovative, and creative workforce that is characterized by inclusivity, productivity, and versatility. Indeed, under this government, I can truly say that the future of work for Trinidad and Tobago is undoubtedly bright. I thank you, Madam Speaker.